So I just got back from the grocery store, and while I was at the grocery store, I had these thoughts. Inflation is very real. I need to start growing my own food, and they really have me scanning and bagging my own groceries. All jokes aside, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for watching this video. As you guys can tell from the title, we are talking about how to save money on your groceries because today's economy is, so we are going to dive into number one, why are groceries so expensive now? Two things that you need to have in order to start saving money on your groceries. And number three, 6 tips to reduce your grocery spending. So let's dive right in. So why are groceries so expensive now? Why are the prices skyrocketing at the grocery store? Well, since 2020, food prices have continued to climb, and it's due to things such as inflation, labor costs, supply chain issues, and increased demand for food, high production costs. There are worldwide grain deficits. There are issues and things that are going on with cattle, with chicken, which is affecting the price of eggs. So everything is just out of control. It's estimated that since 2021, after the pandemic, grocery prices have increased 21%. And so it goes without saying that we are starting to feel a little bit of squeeze on our budgets, on how much we spend when we go out to buy our food. And here on this channel, I am supporting and advocating for healthier lifestyle choices, which means creating and making your own meals at home. So this topic is relevant because it affects how your health and wellness journey continues to go. So what are the 2 things you need when trying to save on groceries? Now, these 2 things are not your run-of-the-mill, answers, but stick with me. Number 1, you have to keep an open mind. You cannot continue to operate the way that you were before if you are starting to feel a little bit of a squeeze on your pockets when it comes to grocery shopping. I know many of my followers have families, and so we have to take into consideration that we're not just shopping for ourselves, we're shopping oftentimes for a partner, we're shopping oftentimes for children as well, and those prices can begin to skyrocket. Back in the day, you could go to the grocery store with $200 and leave with an enormous amount of food. Now, $200, you can reach that very quickly with not a lot of food options. So keeping an open mind to some of the tips that I have for you is going to be key. A lot of this is a mental thing, so we want to make sure that our mindset is continuing to be in alignment with what our priorities are. I know sometimes when we think about or hear the words cut back and budgeting, we start to say, I don't want to have a scarcity mindset. I live in the realm of abundance, and those things can still be true even when saving on your groceries. The second thing that you're going to need is to be realistic. It boils down to being a numbers game. How much money do you have to spend on groceries on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis? We can talk about a scarcity mindset and abundance mindset day in and day out, but the numbers are the numbers. If you go to the grocery store and you're like, oh, okay, this is probably going to be about this much, and you look at your receipt and you're blown away each and every time, it is something that can start to cut into your finances in an unhealthy way if you're not willing to be realistic with what your specific and individual numbers are. I don't shop for a large family. I shop primarily for myself and for my son, and so I typically try to allocate about $100 a week for groceries, and oftentimes I fall short. I try not to go over $150 per week for groceries, and so I really do try to stick within that $100 budget. So I want to spend the bulk of this video talking about the tips because that's what you guys are here for, so let's get into it. The first tip that I have is to start by shopping at home. And people are like, wait a minute, what is this girl talking about? I always start by shopping my own home. So I look in my refrigerator and I see what I have. I look in my pantry and I see what items I already have. Oftentimes I already have a bag of dry beans, or I'll have a box of cornbread mix, or I'll already have a bag of quinoa that I can use. I started shopping what's already in my home because it allows me to utilize items that I already have. There are a lot of people. I grew up in a household where we stockpiled food. Granted, I grew up in a household with 10 people, and so we had to have a supply of food on hand and ready to go. But that a lot of people nowadays are not feeding a family of 10. So while I do believe that we should have some options available for lazy days, unexpected sick days, and things of that nature, I do think that we would reduce a lot of food waste if we started shopping our pantries and our refrigerators and our freezers first. Which segues into tip number 2 pretty easily, which is you need to start planning your meals. As I look in my freezer, my refrigerator, and my pantry to see what items I already have that I can use for the coming week, I start to build meals around these things. So as I mentioned before, if I see that I have a bag of quinoa, I already start thinking, okay, that can be the base of a dish for my lunch coming up next week. So now I only need to buy items that are going to complement and complete that meal. If you already have a box of pasta sitting in your house, that is something that you can say, okay, I'm going to circle my dinner around this. I'm going to use something that I already have. Now I just need to buy pasta sauce or make my own pasta sauce and whatever other ingredients that you want to add into that. This leads to a lot less impulse buying as well. When you plan your meal, I plan out my breakfast, my lunch, my dinner. My snacks are typically either like popcorn or fruits or vegetables. So my snacking is pretty clean. I don't typically plan too much what my snacks are going to be, but I typically have an idea that I need to just make sure I have some extra fruit on hand. I need to have some extra veggies on hand for snacking purposes. As I plan out my breakfast, my lunch, and my dinner, I literally write out, okay, this is what I'm going to have. These are the ingredients that I'm going to need. These are the ingredients that I already have at home. So I'm already starting out by cutting out some expenses because I'm using the things that I have at home already. Another great thing with meal planning is that you stick to a list. Now, I know a lot of people, including myself, and it's a marketing thing. When we go to the grocery store, we see things that are visually appealing, things that we want to try, and I've never seen this before. I wonder what this tastes like. That leads us to adding more things into our basket. So with meal planning, if you can be disciplined enough, you can go into the grocery store, only buy what is on the list. If you have, say you have a budget of $100 and you go into the grocery store, you stick to your list and you end up spending $80. If you want to go and then take, that extra $20 and go buy something, that's not a necessity, feel free to go ahead and splurge in that way. Or you could save that $20 for the following week and maybe have a little bit more of an elaborate meal plan scheduled for yourself. Or you could take that $20 and save it, because saving is the name of the game. There's going to be a time period where maybe you don't have a lot of ingredients at home and you're going to need to buy a little bit more. And so in those instances, that little $20 that you saved can go towards those expenses. And if you know yourself and you know that you cannot stick to a list, you know that you have a wandering eye and you're going to want to try things, or you just know that you're not used to having to stick to a list, and so it's difficult for you to even embody the concept of sticking to a list and budgeting and things of that nature, I really do highly recommend grocery pickup orders. So you have somebody else shopping on your behalf, they stick to the list, and then you just have to pick it up. You don't even have to step foot inside the grocery store. Now, my only caveat with that, I used to use Instacart faithfully when I was a mom to a newborn, and getting out of the house just took a lot more effort. So I did use a grocery store pickup service in the past. The downside to that is I'm a big proponent of moving our bodies. I'm a big proponent of community and getting out and engaging and interacting with other people. So you lose that aspect when you have somebody else do your grocery shopping for you. But also, I was never a huge fan of people picking my produce. I kid you not, I've had people bring me, say I had sweet potatoes on my list. They would bring me just like the worst looking sweet potatoes. And it's like, did you even look at the produce that you put in the cart for me to pick up? So it's almost one of those things where it's like, now I have to either just suck it up and deal with the produce that they've given me, or now I need to go back inside and actually go buy things. And it's like, I could have just did this from the start. And you should be buying produce. Some people are like, I don't really get that much produce, so I don't have that problem. You should be including produce in your grocery list. That brings us to our next tip, which is buying in bulk. I'm typically not a huge huge fan of like Costco, Sam's Club, and things of that nature, only because, not that I don't think there's value there, only because I am shopping, like I said earlier, just for myself and for my son. Although even with a smaller sized household, there are still benefits to buying certain things in bulk. My kitchen staples that I always have, those are options that I typically buy in bulk. For me, that is things like dry beans, quinoa, dates, and oats. Those things I can buy in bulk. I know that I am making a smart grocery shopping and a smart money decision. With the things that you know you are going to need consistently throughout the year or throughout a season, buy those things in bulk because you will be saving money. Now, this next one, some people may or may not like, but it is starting to... I want to make sure that this comes off right. Maybe I haven't worded this in the best way, but it is to make your meals a little bit more basic. And I say that for two main reasons. Number one, a really basic meal would be something like quinoa, black beans, and onions, or quinoa, black beans, and plantain, or honestly just quinoa and black beans. Depending on the serving size, that is just your basic meal that's fulfilling and that's nutritious. Which brings me into the second reason why I am a huge proponent of having some and incorporating some basic meals into your diet, because sometimes the more basic meals that you can make at home using more fresh products and fresh produce are actually the ones that are healthier for us. When we're not using a sauce from this jar, when we're not using seasoning that has all of these different ingredients, sometimes simplicity is the winning formula. Sometimes for me, I'll even do my chickpea pasta. I buy hummus. I mix that together with some roasted red peppers, and that is just an amazing dish that I love. Another basic meal that you can have is some type of starch. So say sweet potatoes, diced sweet potatoes that you can either cook on the skillet or you can roast them in the oven. You can have the sweet potatoes, you can have your frozen vegetable medley, and then something else on the side. So typically 2 to 3 ingredients that you eat in the right portions to create a very basic but healthy and delicious meal. And last but not least, tip number 6 is to shop generic sometimes, okay? Hear me out with this one. Sometimes we are so used to buying brand name products that are oftentimes a lot more expensive. There's some research out there that shows that buying generic over name brands actually is about 29% less. So say you have a product that's a brand name cereal, for instance, that's going for $8 a box. You can buy a similar cereal for the same quantity. Instead of paying $8, you're paying $5. Those little things add up. Sometimes I remember one of my older cousins taking me grocery shopping one time and telling me how to look at, okay, for this many ounces, you're paying this much, money, but for this many ounces, you could pay this much, and breaking down those things. I know that a lot of people have never had anybody show them how to do that. So when you actually start looking at those things, it is very helpful. The one caveat to that is sometimes the generic does not taste like the brand name that I want it to taste like, okay? I would first say try a generic brand if it is still fulfilling what it needs to fulfill for you. Try it out and see. If you try it and you're like, this is not, I cannot do this, it needs to be the brand name, stick to the brand name. But I guarantee you, not in every instance do you need to have the brand name. In some instances, you can get a generic and you're like, oh, this is the same thing. Or, oh, this is like, I actually like this a little bit better. Or sometimes this is actually healthier. A lot of times with brand names, they're bigger companies, they have larger expenses, and so the prices of items are a little bit higher as well. So that is something to take into consideration when you're grocery shopping. This was just a very quick and concise video to help you guys start saving on your groceries. Like I said, I just got back from the grocery store and I was like, what did I thought that I really thought that when I was at the grocery store that I was doing well. So when I finished scanning and bagging my items and the total came up on the screen, I was like, I thought this was going to be a week where I actually stayed within my budget, and it wasn't. There were some items that I purchased that were more household items. So that's probably why my total ended up being a little bit higher than I anticipated. But those are the things. Every little bit does count. I am not saying to have a scarcity mindset. I'm just saying we have to be smarter with how we're spending our money. And the first step to doing that is to understand that, hey, I do need to make a change. The change has to happen in some way. Where can I do that? So hopefully, even if it's just one of these 6 items, it'll help to reduce your overall grocery bill. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this video. If there's any content or topics that you guys would like to see me cover or address, feel free to leave me a comment below. As always, I'm so grateful for you guys' support with each video. If you have not already done so, feel free to subscribe here to this channel. Don't forget to like this video and share it with a friend. As always, I am on Instagram as well, and you guys can find me over there. I will link my page here on the screen. Until the next video.